Am I wrong for not letting my dad's wife name or see my baby? I'm 25 and pregnant. My dad got remarried when I was 17. Me and her never got along. She always pushed me and she wanted me to call her mom and then got mad when I didn't. She got mad that my dad was choosing me over her because we would go out together, just me and him. She went through my text messages, got mad at me for talking to my boyfriend about my depression and how I was feeling and not to her. She tried to take the stuff that I paid for away, my phone, car, etc. Tried to make me babysit her kids multiple times, even on my prom night. She tried to make me lose weight by fasting for a week straight. I'm a healthy weight, always was and still am, but that has always been monitored by a doctor due to health issues then and now. Me and my dad still talk, just not as much. He wanted to meet for brunch, so I said yes, unaware that he was bringing her. When they came in, we talked for a bit casually with my husband there too, until we got into the topic of my pregnancy. She asked me all kinds of questions until she gets to names. She told me that I was going to name the baby Amy, her daughter's name. I politely said no and said we already had a few names in mind. She started saying why she wasn't allowed to name her grandchild and she thought that she would get that right, and I told her it's our right. That was another issue. She kept saying that I was taking away her right as a grandparent and that I've always been such a bitch to her for no reason, and she knew that I never accepted her as a mother from the beginning, but I'm a bad parent if I'm going to project that onto my kid. However, this is when I stopped everything and told her she's not allowed around my kid ever. She kept pushing it, saying that she always knew I was a brat, but to be this bitter to someone who only helped her is absurd. I said that she can think that all she wants, but I'm going to be naming our child whatever we decide, and that name won't be it. Then she decided to try to hit close to home, saying that I was going to be a horrible mother. I'm already not taking care of myself. I look like shit. I'm already eating too much and probably killing the baby with how much I eat. And I just keep adding to how much of a self-centered person I am by taking away her bonding with her grandchild. Whoa, that hit me hard. But I was through. I told her she's not going to be seeing my child ever when she's born, since she wanted to push her luck. Before I could say more, my husband grabbed our stuff and we left. I've never ever gotten so many messages from so many different people in my life. Multiple people are telling me that she was wrong, but I know how she can get, but I shouldn't deny her her grandbaby. Others are saying I'm an asshole and my father is on her side too. I honestly think I'm 100% in the right. It could be self-absorbed of me to say, but I do. But everyone else besides my husband thinks I'm a raging bitch. So, am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for blowing up at my uncle for coming out as trans? My uncle, 64, has been married for 42 years and has 4 kids. Her and her wife have been separated for a few months but are still trying to sort out their differences. Every year around March, the whole family holds a spring banquet. Due to their separation, they arrive separately. My uncle's wife arrived with the kids, and not long after, my uncle showed up. She was wearing a full face of makeup and a dress. At first, everyone thought it was some kind of joke and laughed, but soon realized it wasn't. When we sat down for dinner, she fully came out and said she identified as a woman now. My uncle's wife almost immediately burst into tears and left the room. Her eldest went after her while the rest of us stared at my uncle in shock. Am I the asshole for blowing up at my uncle for coming out as trans? My uncle has expressed not feeling like a man to some of the family, including me. It's why we pushed for her to get a divorce. When they separated, we thought my uncle had finally told her, but come to find out she didn't. Back to the dinner table. My uncle's wife and son had run out and the youngest was in hysterics. So I told her she was a selfish POS and I don't think I could say the next part. She left immediately, but a few days ago, my mother called me and said I took it too far and that my uncle wasn't responding to anyone's calls or texts. I know I was harsh, but it wasn't the right time or place to reveal that, especially when she hadn't told her wife and kids. Am I the asshole for leaving my fiance's birthday after my stepdaughter's prank? So I recently got engaged to my fiance Michael, and we don't live together but agreed to move together soon. He has a 16-year-old daughter, and I'm not gonna lie, she's quite stubborn. Her own dad struggles to get her to listen, and we're not close, which is something I know I need to work on. However, her pranks make it hard to have a good relationship with her. There is some humor to them, but sometimes she goes way too far. And my final straw was on her dad's birthday. When me and his family were having a great time until dinner. When I walked into the dining room, I saw my underwear on a hanger. Am I the asshole for leaving my fiance's birthday after my stepdaughter's prank? My stepdaughter looked at me, smiled, and said, "Oh, you forgot these last time you visited, and I didn't want you to forget them again." I was absolutely astonished, speechless even. Michael was shocked, and my in-laws and other guests, including Michael's friends, were staring at me in awkward silence. I felt humiliated. Some of them even laughed. Next thing I know, I yelled at her and was grabbing my stuff about to leave, and Michael and his daughter told me to calm down. It was just a prank. I left immediately and turned my phone off, and Michael left many text and voice messages calling me hypersensitive. He's also saying that I ruined the birthday for him and his family. Am I the asshole for leaving when my brother-in-law wouldn't let me in the hot tub on my period? My brother-in-law just bought a new house, so me and my husband went to visit. Long story short, I got my period while I was sleeping and the guest room sheets had a small blood stain. So I went to the laundry room to pre-treat and then wash the sheets. When they were done, the blood stain was 100% gone, but when we told brother-in-law, he was disgusted. He inspected the sheets super closely for a long time, and I said, if you're looking that closely and can't find a stain, can't you trust that I got it out? Well, that night we had plans to hang out in his hot tub in the backyard, but after dinner he said I wasn't allowed because of my period. Am I the asshole for leaving when my brother-in-law wouldn't let me in the hot tub on my period? I was shocked and explained that the nighttime leak was because I wasn't expecting my period. I told him it was perfectly safe and sanitary for me to put in a tampon and sit in the hot tub for an hour, but he wouldn't budge. My husband had my back and told him he was ridiculous, and it ended up turning into a big argument. We decided to pack up our stuff and stay at a nearby hotel and drove home the next morning. Now brother-in-law is pissed at us for leaving and not respecting his home. He also Venmo requested my husband $100 for new sheets, which he's refusing to pay. He told the family which are staying out of it, but am I wrong? Am I the asshole for screwing over all the people that donated their time and their money? The PTA has been planning a fundraiser for months to raise money for new cheerleading uniforms. The old uniforms were very outdated and all of the kids are excited about the new ones, including mine. Early in the planning, I agreed that my property could be used at no cost for the event, and that I would provide all of the furnishing. Other people worked hard on buying and making items to be sold at the fundraiser. Some people literally spent upwards of hundreds of hours and/or dollars for the event. While at a recent meeting, the football coach said the equipment was badly worn and needed to be replaced ASAP. So guess where the fundraiser money went? Am I the asshole for screwing over all the people who donated their time and money? I was pissed. Football is always the top priority. I went above and beyond here specifically to help out the cheerleading team. My child and all of their friends on the team got their hopes up only to be dashed. So I told everyone that my property would no longer be available for use and they would need to find a new venue. People panicked and got angry, including several people who voted against the change. They said my decision was equivalent to throwing all their hard work in the trash. I asked them how they think the cheerleaders would feel, and they said I can't overrule the will of the majority. I said they can do what they want, but not on my property.
Storytime about how I found out I was born from incest. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. Growing up, I always wondered why we didn't have a family. I mean, I had both my parents, but we never visited my grandparents, cousins, parents until I turned 15. That's when I started getting curious and I started asking questions. Finally, I asked my parents about my grandparents. I remember meeting them when I was a kid. That's when my dad got really upset. He told me to stop asking questions because we didn't need family. I immediately went onto Facebook. It wasn't hard to find my aunt, my mom's sister. I messaged her and she told me something disturbing. She said my mom and dad were related. They were half brother and sister. Part 2 is up. Storytime about how I found out I was born out of incest. Disclaimer, is not my storytime. Send me on Instagram. When my aunt told me the disturbing truth. My mom and dad were half brother and sister. According to my aunt, when they were in high school, they always spent time together. Everyone just thought they were best friends. But apparently my aunt walked in on them making out one day. When she told her parents, my grandparents, they obviously freaked out and tried to separate them. That's when they tried to send my dad to a military school. 1 week before they sent him, my mom and dad decided to run away together. They finally ran away and never spoke to their family again until I was born. My grandmother begged them to get rid of me. My parents kept me. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how I found out I was born out of incest. Disclaimer, is not my storytime. Send me on Instagram. After I was born, my grandmother begged my mom to give me up for adoption. My parents were both 18 when they had me. Not only were they jobless, they were also half brother and sister. Since my parents had run away from home, my grandparents didn't want to help them financially. Luckily, my parents started their own business and they are successful today. Finding out that my parents are half brother and sister, I understand our family history and why we were never close to our family. Finally confronted my parents and they denied everything. I decided I'd do the same thing they did. I ran away for 3 nights, hid in my bestie's basement. Finally, my parents came over and told me the entire truth. My parents do love me, but they keep me away from my family. What should I do? Should I forgive them?
Am I wrong for leaving a trip early because of my girlfriend's prank? I, 20 male, had a girlfriend, 20 female of 8 months who I recently went on what was supposed to be a week-long beach trip in Queensland with her friends and family. She had been planning this trip for a long time and was looking forward to it, especially since I'd get to know them all. On the 3rd day, we planned to go river floating. When we got there, I was looking through my bag before I went to change and I couldn't find my trunks. I instead found a new navy blue pair. When I told her this, she replied with, "Oh yeah, that's the extra one I packed in case you lost yours." I thought this was thoughtful. I changed into them and we all headed down towards the river. We all got into our tubes and started floating off. About 3 minutes in, I feel my suit getting baggier, and I even noticed a piece is falling off. I was disappointed that they were a cheap pair, but I kept going. Once we hit the rapids, it got real though. I felt a sudden rush of cold water, and I noticed that my trunks had been torn clear off by the water. I stood up, covering myself with just the last piece. Everyone else, about 15 of her friends and family, started to laugh. I was absolutely horrified. One of my biggest fears is being naked in public, and now I was completely nude with no way to get back. I can't tell you how trapped and humiliated I felt. I had to spend the rest of the day with the water up to my shoulders, feeling awkward and embarrassed the whole time. Whenever we were in shallow water, I was forced to stand up and walk exposed in front of them. They weren't prudish either. Her friends and parents made jokes and comments on my body as we went. Her young cousins made sure to comment on the shape and size of my junk when I couldn't cover myself also. When we got to the beach, I had to run covering myself back to my towel. My day was completely ruined. I felt humiliated and angry. When we got back to our room, I was back into clothes trying to forget the day when my girlfriend comes in giggling to herself. She asked me if I liked the new swim trunks, and when I asked what she meant, she told me that she had ordered a prank dissolving pair in lounge and replaced the other one with it. I was absolutely livid. She had purposely exposed and violated me because she thought it would be a good laugh. She even made sure not to pack another pair or towel. I started yelling and she told me to calm down, saying that it was only a joke. I left that night, and I didn't call her the next day. She called screaming at me, acting like I was the one who wronged her, saying that she had worked so hard for this trip and I was being immature. But I didn't want to be around someone who would humiliate me, especially considering that her family and friends would be there. I can understand that I ruined the trip for her, but it feels like her own fault.